manyoko son oui ya son anamu Kia kpane bato we atomoni o ya do mo si afie ya o Amo manyoko son oui ya son dembe mu ya Kia kpane bato we atomoni o ya do mo si afie ya o Kia se pa yanju o kia Se pa yanju o kia kia Sa pa yanju ka o kia ma Si a pa yanju o So si yo lele Si yo lele Si yo lele o ya Si yo lele Si yo lele Lele o ya Si yo lele yo Si yo lele Amon manyan ko son o Oui ya son dan bemu Kia kpane bato we atomoni o abinyon do mo si afie ya o Kia se payan jijo mama Kia se payan jijo re son ke wo kia ya Kia se payan ju o Kia ya uri money mo re tole se ma bembe son biye Kia ya uri manyo e abatoni Passion même oh Kia ya we money More tole sia ma même pio abinyo be
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jah, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In this edition of Tough Talking Thursday, we're going to be talking tough on the government's two executive orders. That's Executive Order number 125 and Executive Order number 126. We also going to be talking about War Crimes Court. Yes, there are steps being taken for the establishment of War Crimes Court in Liberia. We also talk about the GAC audit that brought to the surface some discrepancy between the amount reported by President Weah in the consolidated account and the one reported by President Boakai. To sort this all out, I have with me our public financial management practitioner, Mr. Thomas Kane. Mr. Kane, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. Good to be here, and hi to all the panelists and the listeners out there.
Thank you. Let me welcome Mr. Abdul Boakai Dukle, who's joining us from Canada. Welcome, sir. That's Mr. Dukle right there. He's testing a few things here. Let me also welcome another panelist from Canada, Mr. Leonean Johnson. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jai. It's really good to be here and good to see you. And greetings to all the panelists and our viewers also around the world.
We want to welcome all our viewers across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia. We'll have two more joining us to do this. So, as you may have heard, the issue of War Crimes Court is coming back. And so, War Crimes Court is being announced. There are steps taken. The House passed a resolution for the establishment of War Crimes Court. Also, you see there are some people in Liberia that tell you that, hey, this is becoming a reality. But the argument about War Crimes Court talk about, do we need it? Is it timely? Or is it going to be done right? Could the money be used for something else? So I want us to go around the room and let me hear your side on the establishment of War Crimes. And one person who always cries so loudly is Mr. Prince White Johnson, Senator Prince Johnson, anytime he hears about War Crimes Court. Let me get this by saying, Mr. Leo Johnson, what's your take on war crimes code for Liberia?
So the question, firstly, that you've asked is a very loaded one. So I'm going to try my best to take it apart, Mr. Jah here. So the first thing is, do we need war and economic crimes court in Liberia? The way I answer that question is by asking another question. Do we have suspicion that war crimes and economic crimes have been created in Liberia? And as a part of the international community, regardless of how imperfect that international community is, we've made a commitment to be held accountable by whatever imperfect nature or system that is in place. And if there is suspicion that we all know that we've seen of war crimes, then yes, a war crimes court is needed in Liberia. People have said many things. One, to bring closure, but two, to also ensure that wherever crimes of this nature were committed, people are held accountable. The second piece is, I think people need to realize that the failure of our successive governments and legislatures, lawmakers, and leaders to have carefully sat and thought through this since the TRC process was put into place to figure out what is the right way or the best way to go about this for ourselves is now leaving us in a situation where our international partners are leaving us with no choice but now shoving it down our throat, and we are finding ourselves in a situation where we have absolutely no choice to remain relevant within the international community. Given that we are a heavily donor recipient country, we are quickly beginning to realize that it might squeeze the purse for us if we don't do something. So yes, and I hope this can be a lesson for our leaders and legislature to take another opportunity to think about how we do this properly and do it well, rather than debating and arguing that, oh, we don't need it right now, we need to wait first. Wait till when? You're muted, Mr. Jah.
Let me go to Mr. Ducle here. Mr. Ducle, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, all right. So some are saying war crimes court, we've been calling for it. Do you think, I mean, it has eluded us for some time because, I mean, the drum beats were very high during the Madam Ellen Sirleaf presidency for the implementation of the TRC. Then came President Weah. It didn't happen. It appears that President Bouakai is taking the bull by the horn.
Well, you know, I think I would like to respectfully disagree with my colleague Leo here. I think there's no dispute or any denying that war crime did occur in Liberia. And those events are very well documented by reputable institutions around the world, including the United Nations. And we have also gone through the first phase of that process when we had our Truth and Reconciliation Commission that was established to delve into the cause and things that occurred from in the 70s up to the war. So I think for me personally, it brings to mind what I have always characterized. We as a society, we as a nation try to normalize the abnormally. To say if we initiate a war crime now, is going to disturb the peace. If we do not create this war crime code to hold people accountable, so I hold the Ellen Johnson government responsible for the failure.
Yeah, but Mr. Ducle, we are here now. Let's talk about the war crime code.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's relevant simply because, yes, I think it's the right step and it's way overdue. And it is now about time we drive away from normalizing abnormalities that we have become so accustomed to in our country. Right. I mean, it's a no-brainer. We know things are happening. We remember what happened in France when a former rebel leader was found guilty of war crime. So the same thing in Switzerland as well as in the United States here. So we know the players. We know some of the crimes that were committed. So really, it's way overdue.
Right, but what's about the timing? Right now, President Bouakai is just forming his government. He doesn't even have everybody yet. Is it really timely to do war crimes, especially considering the first 100 days? Is it time to really talk about war crimes code, or you can wait like 2-3 years?
I think they don't expect them to. Again, if you really want to dwell on the timing, I think there are certain mechanisms that can put in place right now, or you can put certain things in motion right now and get the rest done when the government is fully formed. So I think the time issue is not a problem, actually.
Thank you. Mr. Cannon, do you see this thing as being driven by President Boakai, or is it something that appears that is forced down his throat? Because we didn't see that in the 100 days. He said that during his inaugural, but when time for his to lay out his legislative agenda, that was not there. How come now we're hearing more of a war crimes code instead of the 100-day deliverable?
So before I come to that point, for me, what I would say about the issue of the war and economic crimes code is that we need it to be able to close our past in terms of accountability for war crimes and to be able to open our future. That is to deal with the economic piece of the code. Because if we don't deal with the economic piece of the transgressions against the state and the people of Liberia, we are really going nowhere as a country. It is 20 years. Last year, 2023, there was a big celebration in Liberia for having reached 20 years of peace. But what is the dividend of the 20 years? We hardly see it because of impunity. So we need this court to be able to close our past, give closure to those who lost their relatives in the Civil War. Even a day of delay is not sufficient for them. It will be insensitive for us to say, okay, Joseph Boakai just started. Why should he start with this one? For those who love their relatives and friends, many of us here today, like me, if it was not the war, I would have had my PhD ever since, and I'm living life. It is because of the war that we are still going through what we are going through. So to me, it should have been done yesterday. So the question about 100 days, why 100 days? This is part of a 100 day. This is the real 100 days. Why should we kick it after the 100 days? So the question of whether we needed to close our past and open our future as a country. Why is JNB talking about it now? I think during the campaign, when there were these commitments that were made in terms of political parties supporting the Unity Party, some people raised this issue, and Mo Ali clarified on one of his appearances on these media platforms that the Unity Party as a party in an executive committee decision agreed that they were going to establish the War and Economic Crimes Code if JNB won the election. So I don't think this is something that is only coming out because JNB has started or has taken over as a president. This is an institutional decision that was taken by the Unity Party, and they are basically following what they agree on. And I think as a country, we have just moved this thing along the way, and we need to do it. The code is not to say when the resolution is signed today, they are going to arrest people tomorrow. We need to start the process of establishing it, setting up the office, and working with the international community to even design how the code is going to function. So I think this is the best time for us to do it.
And do you see JNB leading it? Because so far we have really not heard much from the executive mansion.
JNB is leading the process. Like I said, is a decision in their party executive committee decision that was taken. It only happened that it's coming through a resolution from the House that has already been signed in the lower house. I did listen to the ambassador for the U.S. Ambassador for Global Crimes. She said she heard that there is an executive order that JNB has already drafted. Right. So I think JNB is playing a role, I mean, in terms of what is happening around the issue of this War and Economic Crimes Code. I don't think this is purely an issue of development partners forcing it through his truth. Like I said, this is an institutional process that the Unity Party is driving.
Mr. Sharif, your senator from Grand Jida, Yaya Nimla, say, hey, this is not timely. I mean, this is not part of the rescue mission yet. This could be down the road, right? And there's also this concern that Prince Johnson always come to mind, right? You know, somebody told me to say they say all the ugly people go draw water, then Bamboo say, oh, and I carry a heavy bucket. So there's all these things. Waka is loud. They say, but Bamboo, nobody call your name yet. So it's this whole idea of timing and how, or some say, well, it's Prince Johnson and you work with him, you knew you were going to do this. So it's like this year has betrayal. Why you look at it?
Yeah, so hello, Dennis and fellow panelists. You know, I love my senators from Grand Judah. I mean, these guys, you know, Yahya Nimla and others. He said, look, you know, ECOWAS people came here and they spent thousands of millions of dollars. I'm like, wow, you know, so you're talking billions, which is far from the truth. But, you know, the reality of this.
Also mentioned Yahya Nimla is President de Model. He headed the Warren faction Model.
Absolutely. So he comes from, you know, those kinds of backgrounds. So I understood the context within which he speaks. So this is a very important decision that Boakai, important first step that President Boakai has taken. Some of the decisions that he's making right now, you know, the pitch for War and Economic Crimes Court, the pitch for, you know, asset recovery and collection. These are decisions that not many expected him to pitch at this time in the first 100 days, because the first 100 days was, you know, to make sure that no car got stuck in the mud. Well, I think that cars are going to continue to get stuck in the mud after 100 days, because the direction that the administration is going now is vast and complex. That said, I agree with Thomas. There has to be the modality, in fact, has to be set. The structure has to be in place. Liberia has to show some seriousness about this issue. A lot of us were victimized by this war that was not our own making. And so we are still being victimized, Dennis. What you have now in you know, in the absence of a Liberian court, you have freelancers, a certain group in Monrovia headed by Siku Beliti and others, you know, going around, you know, accusing all kinds of people, indicting some of them on, you know, very flimsy charges and questionable witnesses. And so we cannot have these freelancers, you know, going around and doing these kind of things. And so what I think is happening now is that, you know, 20 years later, or 25 years later, you have people still profiting from our civil war, our national tragedy. So bringing some structure to this at this time, even starting the conversation, is a good thing. It's not only a good thing, it's a great thing for the country, because heck, there are individuals who want to go in there and clear up their names. And so, you know, the hope is that this is not a personal vendetta. And this is the reason why I bring up the group that's currently very active. And they have indicted a lot of, you know, some people, a lot of Mandingo people. They have, you know, chased people like Vafle Dole out of the United States on false accusations. So, you know, my fear is when these things are these things have to be discussed. They have to be discussed. The context, these things have to be put on the table, and everyone has to look at it. We're not going to have a Vafle Dole situation. We're not going to have an Agnes Reeves Taylor situation, who's in court right now suing that particular group. Or Jibri Massacre, for example, in Europe. I think it's Norway somewhere. You know, or a situation here in Philadelphia where, you know, a guy who was indicted based on individuals who were transported by the group to come and testify. And the defendant didn't have the same opportunity of bringing people forward from Liberia to testify on his behalf. And so there's that factor to look at. So this is a big and complex situation, and I will hope that the government would take, will isolate these actors who are very disingenuous, to put it mildly. And one of the groups is headed by Sekou Bility already. Everyone knows
you mean Hassan Bility?
He is Sekou Bility. That's his name.
Oh, okay. I know him as Hassan Bility. And
his name is Sekou Bility.
To a lot of us, he's been doing quite well, but you look at it, in a differently.
Yeah, I look at Dennis. Look, these are very serious issues, and so when we, the victims, see things like this happening, we are re-victimized by individuals who try to play politics or use this to gain money, resources for themselves. It is not fair that while we're in our moment of grief and whatnot, we cannot allow any group to falsely victimize others in the process. Everyone needs justice. It has to be based on justice, and the process has to be transparent. The process has to be very fair to everyone involved.
Thank you, Mr. Ducle.
Yes.
Mr. President Bouakai was heavily criticized that he was slow, things are not happening. Can you now say that President Bouakai, is gotten ahead of the game, because war crimes courts have eluded us for so long? Now it's coming to pass under President Bouakai. Will you say now, yes, the old man is up?
Yes, Dennis, before I can answer that question, I would like to respond to something my brother just said, Brother Sharif. I don't think you are saying here that those people that were accused were falsely accused. They did not commit any crime. I'm not sure if that's what you're saying, because I know there are people who have complained that this is selective in terms of the people who have been accused. But I've not heard anyone who says these people were falsely accused. They did not commit the crime they've been charged with. So I understand there is some ethnic sentiment that is being raised in certain communities. I get that, and I think rightly so. But to say that these people were accused falsely, I think they went through the due process wherever country they are in, and whatever charges that were laid against them were proven to be what they were. So I'm not sure if the argument would be these people or other people that were not brought to justice. With that said, yes, Dennis, this is way, way overdue. It's been 2 decades almost that this process has eluded us. So it's about time that this is one of the things I was referring to. You need somebody gutsy, somebody who is willing to take the bull by the horn and do the thing that should have been done 2 decades ago. And if you look at the people who are vehemently against this idea of a war crime code, it's coming primarily from people we know to be principal actors who actually were very active during the war, and some of whom we know and we have documented records of these people's actions during the war. So, and I remember one of the main excuses Prince Johnson always come up with is this war crime code is going to disturb the peace that we've been enjoying over the last 20 years. I think it's a false peace without war crime code. It's a false peace if these people are not brought to justice. Because remember, justice delayed is justice denied. So I think it's about time. And again, to your point where you talk about timing, look, it's not going to happen overnight. This is going to be a well drawn out process where a lot of players are going to be involved. It's not just Liberia. We have our international partners. We have our regional friends and brothers that are all going to be part of this process. So I think it's the right decision. And despite all the faux pas he's had in the beginning of his presidency, this is one decision that I must commend him on.
Dennis, if I will respond real quickly, because you know, my statement was cited there. Yes, that's what I'm saying. If you listen to Vafli Dorler interview on Henry Costa's show, Vafli alleged that he was asked to testify against a certain individual, and Vafli did refuse to do that, and so that started his trouble. And then, you know, regardless of whatever he did, he wasn't given, you know, the due process of law. I'm sure you're not sitting here saying that you saw Vafli with weapons and killing Liberians everywhere. I'm not sure. I don't think that's what you're saying here. I'm not sure if you're indicting him for that. But Sekou Billites' group have gone ahead and targeted someone like that. And Vafli also said during that interview that he was asked to be quiet. And he was warned, if you're not quiet, I'm going to come back for you. This is not how you dispense justice. This is re-victimizing we, the legitimate victims of the Civil War. The war was a genocide. They said it came for Samuel Doe, but Samuel Doe was sitting in the executive mansion when people were murdered from Butour to Bombing Hills, from Bapolu to to Maryland, from everywhere in Lofa County, Bakadu, for example, places like that, everywhere in the country. And some of us could not go through checkpoints, because of the names that we carry. And so
I don't want us to go too much into that, but Vafli Dorler did not go to court, right? But the rest of the people went to court. Are you saying, I mean, this was like kangaroo trial, they didn't take place? I don't know of Vafli Dorler going to court for the case to be heard.
Here's what happened, Dennis. Some of the people that went to court, especially in the United States, didn't have the same opportunity of transporting witnesses from Liberia. Some of the witnesses, from what I understand, were denied. And so because the United States has no jurisdiction in Liberian cases, so what the United States then did was the U.S. judicial system went after things like, lying under oath and these things that they have jurisdiction over. And but keeping in mind that the broader context was that these guys were war criminals and they commit excesses during the Civil War. And so witnesses that came alone, some of these witnesses were promised resettlement opportunities and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars of money from the group that Mr. Sekou Billites and others are heading. Look, go no further. Look at Agnes Reeves Taylor. Follow Agnes Reeves Taylor's case now in the court system of Liberia.
Thank you, Mr. Lee Johnson. What we saw also is during the campaign, we heard phrases like President Boakai or Kennedy Boakai at that time say he's going to dance with the devil. So he danced with someone who obviously the face of the atrocities in the country, Prince Johnson. Now that he got a job, he's now dancing with the war crimes court people, and Prince Johnson may be. Is it that he has the guts to turn his back on him, or do you see that as betrayal, or someone who stands for justice and on the side of Liberia say, well, no matter what it takes, I'm even going to throw friends under the bus if that means justice is finally here to Liberia? How do you read into Mr. Boakai's actions?
I think there's a bigger question here to ask, first of all, because I think it's easier to narrow this down to Mr. Boakai or to Mr. Prince Johnson. And just to correct, to reflect on what Duplication said earlier before I answer the question, I'm not saying there has been no court that established that war crimes have been committed in Liberia. It is alleged. Regardless of what we know or whatever, for us to say it's a crime, it has to be established by a competent court of law that says, yes, this was a crime. So until those people can be tried, all of these are alleged, even with the evidence that we have. That's what I meant when I referenced it. But to your question, Mr. Ja, we should ask a bigger question. That's why everything people are saying about Prince Johnson, that's why everything people say about President Boakai saying he would dance with the devil to win the election, that's why everything people do with the people we elect in the legislature, there has been a complacency of our leaders of not proceeding on this. And people keep reinforcing them. So we said on the show, we all saying we need war crimes code. We all saying we want this. We agree, except that the results that do show up in our elections actually says the opposite. Because the people who are the key stakeholders and the power brokers that we continue to reinforce are the very people who have shown us that they're not interested. So we can make it about President Bouaka. I get to say this. I think people don't realize it's easier to politic and campaign than it is to govern. Those are two different things. When you get to the point of governing, guess what? If Prince Johnson is a power broker in the Liberian legislature and still wields a lot of political influence on the ground, I'm sorry, he's going to still wield influence whether or not you like it, because the people have given that to him in that way. If Yaya Nimle, or he's called, is a power broker, so the bigger question we should be asking, we should not forget, putting this on one person here, on just Bouaka here to say, Bouaka must go ahead and implement, this is more complicated than President Bouaka setting up an office to go ahead and do war crimes code. First of all, the Liberian legislature and the laws, our convoluted laws that we have on our books, many of which were put in from the Samuel Doe military regime time, people changed clauses to accommodate themselves in particular ways, including our various legislatures. We were going to come to a point of reckoning that some of these will directly clash and conflict, and is going to take a serious work. As I speak, the war crime code, Mr. Jai, I don't go too much into it, because to do it, first of all, there has to be an office that put forth a robust pathway that shows the Liberian people what is the plan about this, because this could take up to 5 years. If we should learn anything that we learned from the Sierra Leone code that was set up in The Hague, this could take the next 5 to 7 years if it is done properly. So for people to just be talking it and tossing it around like a political football, for me, I'm sorry, I'm not narrowing it down to President Bouaka and what he says or doesn't say. I'm narrowing it down. People like to say, I like to see report. The stakeholders, Bouaka can say all he wants to say. If the legislature just go ahead and signs a resolution and say, yay, we want war crimes court, but the same legislature is not willing to do the kind of deep-breaking work, the back-breaking work that is required to show to the international community. Let me tell you what will happen. The international community will craft their agenda and selectively pick what they feel is important to them and go ahead and do it, and we will have a war crime court and end and still don't have closure to the Liberian Civil War because it was not holistic. The international community will only serve its interest for what they want to see accomplished and not what the Liberian people need.
Right, and I get the complication, the complexities about with the implementation. What I was asking is because President Bouaka is the head of the country, he must agree to this. So I'm saying, by allowing this war crimes code to take place, is it that he's siding with justice instead of those who help him win?
I think that's what I was alluding to when I said politicking versus governing. I think when President Bouaka said he would do whatever it takes to win the election, at the end of the day, because the Liberian voting population had made someone like Prince Johnson to be a valuable political asset to win an election in Liberia, we see everybody. Everybody wanted Prince Johnson on their side, not just President Bouaka. Everybody wanted Prince Johnson. So I think President Bouaka has now come to face the reality of governing, where Liberia is a heavily donor recipient country and is beginning to emerge in the international community, that the issue of war crimes court is beginning to be tied to what governments will do what to support the Liberian government's initiatives. And if the Liberian government must get access to great partnerships with this government, then President Bouaka, I think, is beginning to show that he has no choice but to do what it takes to get to that point. And I think this is why we are seeing, given the fact that this conversation is not even being driven in our local governance halls. It's being driven by the U.S. global crimes or human rights or justice person. It's being driven by Alan White. It's being driven by all these people, except in fact, we're still fighting. Our people still making plow. The president made a commitment and said he will go ahead and do this. There's a massive uproar among our governors of the day, arguing and fighting that it shouldn't happen. So it is the foreigners that are actually driving it, which is dangerous for a holistic process that needs to happen in Liberia. So I'm sitting here telling you, Mr. Jai, that yes, we are seeing the difference now that President Bouaka must reckon with between politicking, campaigning, versus the reality of governing a country like Liberia that can't shake if the donors don't fart.
Thank you. Mr. Kane, we see I mean, this is it's complex, right? So what do you see ahead? I mean, Leo, it's going to be like a long process. And I asked you earlier whether President Bouaka was driving this. Leo is alluding that, hey, this is not even, it's coming from outside. Right. So how do you see this going forward?
And this is something I want to disagree with. You know, after the Civil War, there have always been campaigns in Liberia for the establishment of economic crimes code. There are civil society organizations that have committed their life to campaigning for the establishment of the War and Economic Crimes Code. The Liberia National Bar Association, sometime last year, drafted a law and submitted it to the legislature for the establishment of this code. So to just come and say, okay, it is because of the US and this is all donor driven, it's not true. The ambassador for global crimes was appointed quite recently. Except if you've not been following this process, but this is a process that Liberians themselves have been leading. It is because their governments have not been listening to them. When the United Party was in power, who was the leading advocate for the establishment of the War and Economic Crimes Code? It was the CDC opposition. And everybody expected that when they come to power, they were going to establish this code so that we could get over this. They didn't do it. And also considering the point that he's making that, okay, after the Civil War, we keep electing these people, it's all because of poverty. People are getting into government, stealing government resources, and then they go to one of these counties where you have these very poor people and give them handouts and ask them to vote for them. How do we put an end to all of these issues? It's actually addressing this issue head on. And this is why, for me, the issue of the war crimes, like I said, to look at the past, but the economic piece that is attached to it is extremely important, because we keep having a group of people that are ripping the state apart and then using those resources from the state to be able to keep themselves in power. And what is the choice that the poor people have? They go and vote for them. So this is a process that Liberians themselves have been advocating for. This is not an entirely externally influenced process to say it's because of this global ambassador. Civil society organizations, stakeholders have been pushing for this. And like I said, the Unity Party said they were committed to it. So I don't think President Bouakai, this is a unilateral decision that he has taken. This is something that the party agreed to. And regardless of what happened during the campaign process, I think he's just doing Liberia a favor by really setting the foundation for this country for us to be able to move forward. Like I said, last year when we were celebrating the 20 years of peace, Raptor Pele and Aaron Weir, they published an article and said the peace that we are celebrating, I think somebody made a point, it's a negative peace. We really don't have peace in that country. After the Civil War, the approach was, let's empower the people economically, and then the issue of, maybe the problems they have with the war will go away. But we have not been able to even address the issue of poverty because of the huge corruption that is in the country. And this is where I don't agree with the current senator of Grangida County, that we have pressing issues. Let's pay attention to it. Let's not focus on war and economic crimes code. But even if you want to improve health, you want to improve education, with the level of corruption that is in that country, you are not going to improve it for the next 100 days or even 10 years. So we need to address this issue, and then we can move on with development.
Yeah, Mr. Jack, can you just give me a minute to clarify a few things quickly? I'll be very quick. Number one, I think it's very disingenuous for us to sit there and say the president of the republic is doing us a favor by doing Liberians a favor by bringing war crime code. No, it's not doing Liberian a favor. Like you yourself said, my brother Thomas, that it was a commitment upon which they ran a campaign, and the Liberian people elected them on that commitment. So it is not a favor, it is a responsibility now as a government. Number two, I agree. I don't disagree with you that Liberians have been, ordinary civil society groups and Liberian human rights advocates have been calling for war crimes code. But the question you should ask yourself, why hasn't it gone anywhere? Well, all these years that people have, led matches, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So when I say it is the foreign partners driving,
it's been a leadership issue because no president has committed.
So what I'm saying, Mr. Jah, I'm not saying it's the foreign partners that are advocating for it. I'm not saying Liberians are not advocating. I said this particular iteration that we are seeing, this new zest and this new push. Like you said, the bar drafted a law and gave it to our legislature after CDC campaign on war crimes code. That law died in the legislature on arrival. It went nowhere. So I'm saying this particular push is being driven by the foreign partners, because our civil society groups have been pushing it, they didn't have the capacity to do it. The reason the legislature is not responding, the government is all of a sudden in arms, is because of the players that are now all of a sudden pushing. We've never seen the U.S. and partners being this vocal directly as they have been now in the past.
Right. I mean,
did I say Joseph Boakai was doing the people of Liberia a favor?
Yes, you said that.
I didn't say that. I said it's an institutional dispute. No.
You said he's doing Liberia a favor.
All right.
No.
Mr. John.
How can I say he's doing Liberia a favor?
Mr. John, let's just correct that. If you want to correct it, you can correct it. But that's why.
No, you said you didn't say that, and I
didn't say that.
Fair
you
enough.
said something about favor, but I'm not quite sure. But let's do this. I want us to move away from that, because definitely the issue has been the leadership, because no president has been willing to take this on. So if Boakai now is taking this on, that's his credit, regardless. And they are different players. There are different issues coming up. But let me go to Honorable Greaves. Honorable Greaves, welcome. You have consistently
Thanks for having me.
People, you take this thing easily. So I'm interested in your take on the war in economic crimes code it is happening right now in the country. Is it? I mean, you have consistently said that in fact things like audit and all these things, let them be for now. Let's concentrate on doing X, Y, Z. So I want to hear from you on your take on the war crimes court.
Thanks for having me. I want you to please forgive me my voice. I have a little problem struggling. I hope you all can hear me.
Yeah, not optimal, but it's okay.
Yeah, I got trouble. Monday was my birthday, and
happy birthday.
Thank you. Later when I'm still trying to recover.
That was quite a party.
Yeah, it was great. Everything was good, but the voice still struggling. But I'm audible, right? I'm audible enough.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, I am. So the thing is, I always have a different viewpoint on these things. We have a country that we have struggled, we have sacrificed, and have made significant gains to this point. We have enjoyed peace in Liberia for nearly, I would say, approaching 3 decades now. After our civil strife and all that we went through, the destruction and what have you, what I've learned from political science, that in every country that has suffered conflict, the first and paramount thing that is looked at, or that is focused on, is the economic stability. The economic stability leads to stability in the security. It leads to a healing era when everybody comfortable, everybody is self-sufficient, everybody got work or something to do and can care for the family. That's when you find natural healing with reconciliation and all of the forgiving of the past and what have you. Liberia has come a long way. We have done all of the things that we said we wanted to do, as was enshrined within the Accra Peace Accord. We went with a TRC approach. That's when the entire international community, our partners, were all engaged and fully focused on getting us on path. At that time, we had a very fragile state. We didn't have the necessary institutions, government institutions that could provide justice system through the real justice and the legal process and what have you. So we had an intervention of the international community coming in and helping us in establishing all those things. We had to suspend our constitution for 2 years. That was between the period of 2003 up to 2005 when we had elections. We came in and set up a full-scale government. They had the money. They helped us. They were partnering with us, rather. And they said, okay, since you all decided that the war crimes code was not the way to go, you didn't want to go there because you want to heal. You want your nation to be one. You want to come back. So now you got peace. We will do the TRC that you proposed, which is enshrined within the Accra Peace Accord, the documents. We carry that out and what have you. But since then to now, we have
the TRC recommended war crimes court.
The TRC went out of its code. That's another thing we found another time to enumerate on, because the mandate, the responsibility is given them, and what they were told to report and the recommendation of what have you, they went out of skill. They went and took on excess power under themselves, that even the Supreme Court had to shut down certain portion of the recommendations they proposed, because now we're dealing with our constitution. Our constitution was no longer suspended since President Selly took office and we had an elected president. Government was now structured. She went through structural reforms. She went to legislative reforms to have our system back. So those were the intangible progress she made in government. But the problem here is that what is the benefit of a TRS, the War Crimes Code now? At this critical juncture that we are, what are the list of things that the government have promised to do for our people? What is the status of our people? Who are the people pushing this agenda of a War Crimes Code? Who are involved? Who's going to pay for it? Do we have the international partners on board as we think they are? Because there are many of them not even thinking that way. Many of them have given in so much to Liberia and has put us on our path, and thought about now we have had successive elections, 3 different elections, and we have sustained peace and stability, and I think we have our legal system and everything in place. Why are they going to spend money? The UN is not going to pay for this, because the UN depend on donations and contributions from member states, and the member states want to know why are we sending money to Liberia for War Crimes Code? What are the benefits? We know the cost. So in any country that is rising out of the ashes of civil conflict water, the focus is economic. The focus is security first, security and economy, and then other things can happen. Now, if any of our partners right now who are not done, we get somebody mentioned the Alan White. Who is Alan White working for? Who is he? Have we checked to know who the guy is? Is he working for the High Court, the UN High Commission Court on Human Rights? Is he working for the American government, or is he working on an NGO, or is he working on his own agenda? So we have to be very careful, because the road that's paved to hell is paved also with good intention. Do we want chaos in our society? This is going to bring a lot of controversies. This is going to bring a lot of division in our society. Are we prepared? All of the mechanisms have to be put in place, or are we just running because we hear War Crime Code and we think it sounds so good? How is it going to be sustained? Who's going to finance it? We don't have anybody, no international partner talking about financing this. I don't know where that come from. I hear one guy named who is called Alan White. We don't even know who is Alan White. We don't even know what his agenda is. We don't know what he stands for. We don't know who he's representing. And these are some of the hard questions we need to be asking, because we have come too far to derail our peace process and cause chaos in our society, instability and all of that, because these are the things that undermine the government trust. These are the things that undermine the government capability of leading its people into economic progress. So we have to be very mindful of how we go about this War Crimes Code.
Thank you. Thank you. On that note, I know there are many disagreements on the War Crimes Code here, but we have to move on to our next topic, which is the.
Could you mind allowing me just 1 minute? Let me respond to something.
All right, 1 minute.
Yeah, Dennis, let's not lose sight of the fact that in 2002, Sierra Leone requested for a special code for Sierra Leone. They requested for something similar so that they can delve into the alleged crime that were committed during their civil war. And we saw what happened. So Sierra Leone did it with success. Why can't we do it? And I'm totally aware of the various interests that are interested in having the war code in Liberia. When people talk about someone like Alan White, but do we know if he's the one who's even actually going to be leading this? So I do also agree that there are a lot of things that need to happen before this gets underway. But I think we must commend the fact that this thing has been spoken about. And finally, for the first time in our post-war country, the legislature have taken off to establish the War Crime Code. So I think it's a step in the right direction. Yeah, there are a lot of things. There are a lot of parts that need to be put together before this thing can get underway. I do get that, but I think justice delayed, justice denied. Liberia deserves one.
Thank you. I know we have a lot of grounds to cover.
Can you give me 30 seconds?
All right, 30 seconds.
Dennis, you got to give everybody 30 seconds too.
I made a point earlier, but I just want to reinforce this. We've gone through this route for 20 years. After Civil War, let's focus on economic empowerment. And the economic empowerment has not happened. We've seen individuals that have been empowered at the expense of the citizens who were victimized during the Civil War. So I don't think this is something that we need to go back to again and say, okay, the war ended, let's focus on economic empowerment of the people. Corruption is undermining that economic empowerment. This is why I was saying initially that this is not only on the side of the war crimes, but on the economic crimes issue. And to me, I believe that if economic crimes were not even committed against the state, perhaps we might not have had a civil war. Because where do people get these resources from to be able to finance the war?
Thank you. Your 30 seconds finished. Mohammed, your 30 seconds.
Dennis, in Guinea right now, the military junta that briefly ruled that country, they attacked their citizens at the stadium, I believe in 2009. Right now, those guys have all been arrested. They have been tried in a court of law under another military regime. Right now, that is going on in Guinea. And so for us, who had this tremendous losses and what have you, and so we're saying, let's move on. No, we cannot move on. The nation has not moved on. We can't not move on if these grievances have not been addressed with due process. And that is my thing. There has to be a due process to each and every one that participated in the Liberian genocide.
Thank you. Your 30 seconds over. That takes us to
my 30 seconds.
Go ahead with your 30 seconds.
Please, yeah. We should not get confused over this thing. It's just so simple. Liberia is not in a dire need of peace right now. We have peace and stability that we've enjoyed for a significant period of time. And we should not say and misplace that. The people of Liberia are not the ones, and they are not the ones talking about war crimes court. Is the few pundits who have the airwaves, who have all these different international NGOs are pushing this. What is the agenda? Have they told the Liberian people? Have they told the Liberian people what the benefit would be? We know what the cost going to be. It's going to be a whole lot. It's going to be very costly.
Right.
But we don't know. We don't know what the benefits. We don't know what the end game is going to be. We don't know how it's going to be sustained, maintained. Now you talk about Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone, at the time when they were at the table, they said when the iron hot, that's when you bend it. At that time, the international community was there with them, trying to help them find peace, and ask them, "What do you want to do? How do you want to go about this?" They proposed that, and it was done. When our time came, we proposed TRC. We could have done that. Now we're coming back after 30 years or more. Then we're going back to them. They're not interested. I'm telling you this.
Thank you.
So you have one or two persons when I call Alan White because that's a new year. Alan White's going, oh, war crimes go. Who is he? As we check to know who is he and what's the agenda.
Thank you. Your 30 seconds over.
Can I get my 30 seconds as well?
Yeah, you got your 30 seconds, but it is not. Liberians have been calling for war crimes court. I've interviewed a lot of them, and they've been calling for war crimes court.
Few of them.
Okay. Well, Mr. Johnson, your 30 seconds.
Yeah, I just want to say this to everybody that since 1946, to disagree with my honorable William G. Breeze here.
I like that.
Since the German War, today people have still been standing trial for how long that has been. Since the end of the German War, World War II. People know that, right? There's still today war criminals are still being hunted to be tried for that war that is so many decades ago. So I disagree. I believe and I agree that there's a feedback.
Yeah. Go ahead. I've addressed that.
Sorry. I agree for the need of the establishment for war and economic crime code. That is not my debate. I agree that there is a need for it. And I think President Boakai is the only president in the history of Liberia that has gone the furthest so far to have taken a actually deliberate stance to say, yes, he will not just implement it, but is saying that he wants to set up an office to begin that process and is engaging with some of these partners. My conversation has been more around Liberian government, successive, know how to mess everything up. Even the things that should be for their own benefit, they know how to screw it up. From disarmament to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission today, the actual evidence by which we should be prosecuting war crimes from the Truth and Reconciliation is sitting at Georgia Tech. It's seized. The Liberian government does not have access to it, cannot access it because it is under seizure. It is what the US government has been using to prosecute people individually. So my only thing is if we don't see a proper planning for this process that may last 7 to 10 years so that it's done properly, we'll be sitting down here again after some kind of quasi-war crime code and complaining as to how the same TRC today we are complaining was never done properly. That is my only concern. But President Biden will be given the credit for moving this needle the further that it has ever been moved in our history.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you are just joining us, this is Tough Talking Thursday, and don't mind when the panelists are talking tough. Our next stop is on the executive orders. I mean, when President Bouakai took office, I was one of those calling for, hey, President Bouakai, you need to do something. Where is your executive order? We compare him to Joe Biden, who issued 17 executive orders his first day, right? Now, President Joseph Newman Bouakai already issued 2 executive orders. The first one is on rice, the suspension of the import of tariff on rice. And he said, now, therefore, I, Joseph Newman Bouakai, President of the Republic of Liberia, issued this, suspending the import tariff on rice has classified under this code. Whether or not polished or glazed, this kind of rice, whether it's Pusawa rice, Sondon, Sonandon, whatever it is, there's tariff. He's slapping, right? That's good. And, you know, we want to see more because this government campaign on, you know, making us to eat. So we hope more coming. I want us to concentrate on the second one, which is the asset recovery. It reads, whereas in order to put into place the required legal framework for the recovery of all assets wrongfully acquired by current and former officials and employees of the Liberian government, in order to appropriately and robustly curtail this alarming menace that has engulfed our country, the government of Liberia has decided to establish a task force of asset recovery within the Office of the State for Special Services. So the task force shall consist of a chair and co-chair and shall have the full cooperation of the GSA. The asset recovery task force shall also retrieve assets from private individuals and who have illegally purchased government assets. And this is what they're going to do. Number one, identify and trace all Liberia's stolen and suspicious assets within and out of the borders, constitute investigative panel to probe into Liberia's stolen and suspicious assets, constitute an effective and robust legal research and investigate team to procure and prepare tangible evidence, and it went on and on, place travel ban, upon adjudication, return confiscated assets, employ diplomatic and Interpol means to extradite people, and so on and so forth. Today, it went even a step further by appointing people to this, including our own Ellis Coffey as member. He has a chairman and first, and including Martin Colley and other people are to the asset recovery. But there's a whole lot to chew on from this asset recovery. Let me start with you, Thomas. Asset recovery. This is first of all, let me get your 1 minute each. Let me get your take. Good thing, bad thing, step in the right direction, chewing, or is he biting off more than he can chew? What's your initial reaction to this piece of the asset recovery executive order? Let me start with Thomas and let you 1 minute each.
Okay, just quickly. I think this defeats the argument that we have to pause the issue of war and economic crimes, go and focus on other things. I think what the president is doing all at the same time.
You can walk and chew gum.
You can walk and chew gum at the same time. While he's imposing, he's suspending the collection of tariff on rice such that the price of rice does not go up. He's also talking about establishing a code and also issuing an executive order to be able to recover some asset. And this is much more important because the current discussion around domestic revenue mobilization in Liberia is to push our domestic revenue to $1 billion. Asset recovery is one place where you can be able to raise domestic revenue. It's a very tedious process. It will go through the issue of research, you identify, you go through the code process, but there are instances where there are low-hanging fruit. We've seen in Sierra Leone, for instance, the anti-corruption in Sierra Leone, when Marabio started his first term, there was a lot of asset that was recovered that actually contributed to revenue generation. And he has now only issued the executive order. He's now put a team together. So I think this is a step in the right direction.
Thank you. Let me hear from Honorable Greaves on asset recovery, the executive order. 1 minute, your take.
Yeah, I think that's in a good direction, the right direction. These are the things that we were talking about, encouraging the government, the new administration, to start to look at. Those are things that are realistic, because you're talking about executive order. Those are the stroke of the pen, although they might be temporary, but at least it has some tangible or real impact, positive impact, that people can see that the government is making stride. Now, we cannot try that with things that are unimaginable, like bringing war crimes court. Those are not things that the government can sustain or the government can pay for. The government don't even know which partners they're working with. So I would look at realistic issues like the rice price. I would look at realistic things that affect the people at this juncture, this critical juncture of our country. Those are the things that the people want to hear. Those are the things that the government can do and make impact positively. Now, if you go to any country, like somebody raised the fight of Germany, they didn't go to the war crimes court. They didn't go to international partners to come and prosecute their people. What they did first was to build an economy. They went to industrialization, what have you. Germany became the economic power engine of Europe. Everybody lived comfortably. You still have people of different size. Now, if you have a system that is well settled, like we have our judicial system, we have our court system, why we want people to come from outside to judge people who are corrupt? If we can prove that they're corrupt, why do we try them in the court in Liberia? That's what the international community are telling us. We have established all these things. We have done the necessary reform for you all, the legislative reform and all of that, structural reform. Why should we come? If Ghana have problem, Ghana said they call the war crime code to come prosecute people in the country where the government somebody did wrong. That's the problem we're getting with it. People who have been prosecuted in Europe and America and other places are not been prosecuted because of Liberia war crime situation. There were NGOs, there were groups that went to courts and took these people's name and took cases against them locally. And these people were arrested for being perpetrators of crimes and whatever in other countries and residing in these places. And when these people were tried, there was no evidence, and all those people have been released.
Thank you.
So we shouldn't use it.
Thank you. Mr. Dukley, I want your quick 1 minute take on the asset recovery executive order.
I think it's probably one of the best decisions that Joseph Walker has taken thus far since he became the president. And I just hope that they'll be able to carry it through as they have presented it to us. Because, in our country, we have come to learn and normalize these kind of things to be the norm, where people will just, with impunity, take government properties. And I mean, it's just something that, it's baffling, but I think it is a good idea. It's a good first step. I just hope that the team he's now trying to put together develop the needed mechanism to make sure that all these assets are accounted for.
Thank you, Mr. Sharif.
Yeah. So my hope is that this is again those who are implicated are given due process. That this is not the beginning of a witch hunt. This is something that George Weah started this, and he never went through with it. And again, I return to due process. It has to be done in a way that your neighbor had a problem with you now. They want your houses seized. They want your cars seized.
That's the implementation, right? But the process of setting is a good thing, bad thing. What's your?
Of course, it's a good thing. It's good governance. I want to go further than that, though. I want to see he himself declare his asset publicly. His vice president declare his asset publicly. All his officials declare their asset publicly. So you need to come clean if you are the president of the Republic of Liberia to give some credibility to this machinery that you're now putting in place. This is not an easy thing. So don't think that, people are not, analysts like ourselves are not watching these things to say, okay, you're going to do this, but you yourself as the leader of this need to come clean as well. because I think he's going to go deep. This is going to go from, I think, 06. And maybe we'll have the opportunity to talk about this tonight, but this is going to go deep.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, President Bwaka himself is setting up asset recovery. He has not published his own asset.
And I would just remind everybody the very words of one of the person that was appointed on the asset recovery team. By the way, setting up an asset recovery team and the expression of wanting to do is a good thing, period. Let's just put that on the record to register it. It's always a good thing when there are people suspected of stealing government or the cup from the country or whatever that is, to ensure that if those can be retrieved, they are retrieved. However, let me go to Alex Coffey's article, because his name has also been named as one of the members of the asset recovery team. Let me go to this article. He gave the reasons why it would be difficult, the difficulty in trying to do asset recovery and fighting corruption in Liberia. Number one, he said lack of political will. So let's assume that now we got President Bwaka named. Let's assume there's political will, right? Let's assume President Bwaka will give the political will. Number two, he said political influence, powerful government officials, interference undermines the independence of doing this type of work. So I want to ask you, look at the people in the corridors of power and some of the alliances that had to be made to make sure the government come to power, and the way the power is being split between appointments based on the political marriage and alliances that are going on. Do you think this process will be void of political influences? Again, questions. Number three, judicial system challenges. Judicial system challenges. Ellis Coffey is saying our judicial system is so weak that it's almost difficult to be able to actually properly do the processes that would be required to do this. So the question I got to ask, as well-meaning as this is, as great as this is, we are yet to see any of the serious reforms that have been well documented that are required within our judiciary system, even the LSCC. How come the LSCC is not leading this effort? Again, I don't know. In President Bwaka's wisdom, maybe he understands why there is needed capacity here to actually do this. But these questions that have been raised by Ellis Coffey are as real today as they were under the WIA's government, as they were under the previous Ellen Johnson-Sirleaf government. So the fact that none of these have been addressed and we're celebrating asset recovery, I'm wondering, are we putting the horse or the cart before the horse instead of putting the horse before the cart? Again, I leave that to the wisdom of those experts, but I am concerned that these challenges are still real right now, with the asset recovery team going to work. Will they be their own judiciary, their own prosecution, their own legislature? Is the legislature even going to cooperate with something like this? Can the president effectively embark on asset recovery without the full cooperation of the legislature in this case? I don't know.
Thank you. And Thomas, I'm coming to you right there. Is this whole and I'm coming because of your deep understanding of our PFM system in Liberia and that financial system. Asset recovery, I mean, I'm looking at it as do you think this should be the first step? And this is what I mean, right? Because you can look at me and say, hey, Dennis, I'm coming to collect to recover your asset, right? There should be investigation. So asset recovery is like you already convicted or found guilty. That's time we talk about restitution, recovery, penalties, incarceration, and all that, right? So is it possible to really start with asset recovery? How are we going to identify those who asset we're going to recover? And more to that, isn't the LACC and other institutions already doing that? Can we not build upon what they do if we find those culpable, and then we can go and seize their asset?
Well, the issue of asset recovery, I mean, there are different approaches you can take to be able to recover asset. I think the thought of the president here is that we have established anti-graft institutions,
exactly,
but this is kind of like a special operation.
Right.
Right.
And that operation could be those who you already got.
And it's very expensive special operation too. It's not cheap.
I mean, but the point here is that when we look at the cost of these things.
Yeah, let's not dwell on the cost yet. Let's talk about, the question I was asking is, I mean, why is this coming first instead of maybe third or fourth?
Third or fourth, what do you think should come first?
Investigate, audit.
No, but
take the audit report of who are being found already, and then you can go after the assets
on file.
Right. So let me come to it now.
Okay. Yeah.
Who do you think then is going to do it? What the president is doing is that I'm setting this specialized committee and give them a specific mandate. The LACC, the FIU, all of these anti-graft institutions have their mandate under which they work. They have their day-to-day work to do. But this committee is a committee that has been put together that has been given a special mandate. And if you look at the formation of the committee, there are institutions that are already existing that are part of this committee. That means they are not going to work in isolation. And if you go back to the executive order, there are two words that are very critical: fixed asset and liquid asset. Fixed asset, for instance, this is the reason why the GAC is on this committee, because there are people who have been given government vehicles, and at the end of the regime, they just remove the government license plate and put a personal license plate. So these are things that you can easily recover. You only ask them to bring back the government vehicles and they will bring it back. The place where it becomes complicated and a long process is the issue of the liquid assets, which is if you say, okay, we employ you, you work in the government for 7 years, now you are a millionaire. Can you come and show us where you got these millions as compared to the salary that we're paying you? We're just coming from a point where we harmonize salaries. People were not making a lot of money. But how come in 7, 8, 9 years, you have made this kind of money?
On that point, how is this task force going to do that, right? What would be the suspicion, or what is going to lead them to that point to come to me and say, hey, how come you have 7 million in your account?
When there were no asset declaration to begin with, I was done properly.
And there is no report on them from the GAC, the LACC, the FIU, the Internal Auditing Agency. So
Okay.
how are you going to get to them?
So like I was saying, this committee is going to do research. Some of the research is going to be on existing evidence that is already available.
Okay.
They are going to look at audit that has been conducted by the GAC. They are going to look at audit that has been conducted by the IAA. Don't forget now that the chair of the committee is the former head of the LACC that was dissolved, right? So they are going to get all of this information. They will get information from the National Security Agency. They track all of the phones that are moving across our borders. They will get information from the FIU. So there's a lot of information that they will gather. This is why they are establishing such a way that you got researchers, you got lawyers, you got financial experts. So they will look at violations of the PFM law, and all of that information will be gathered, and they will use it to be able to confront you every time there is a suspicion about your income. And if you cannot validate that you made this income legitimately, then it goes to the process. Now, there was this issue of whether the legislature is in sync with this process. The Speaker of the House has just said that, considering the fact that the president has issued this executive order, they should move fast to be able to establish the corruption code. And the corruption code, the establishment of that code is in the LACC law that was passed. That if LACC now has a prosecutorial power, you need to establish a specialized corruption code so that they can fast track the processes. So I think there is the political way from the executive. We see signals from the legislature. On the point of our judiciary, are we going to wait for the judiciary to be perfect before we start to recover assets that people took away from the state? I think we can use some of these processes to even empower the judiciary and train them so that they can be able to do these things.
Thank you. Mr. Sharif, I'm coming to you there. And let's go into the executive order again. I saw that they say the liquid asset, what is the piece I'm looking for here? That this shall, okay. Whereas the task force shall consist of a chair and co-chair. And I don't want to put you through an English class, but then the group was formulated today, and instead of a chair and a co-chair, we have a chair, vice chair, and members. Vice chair and co-chair are not the same, right?
Yeah, Dennis, you're absolutely correct. You're taking us back to, I don't know, the 80s, where you have Thomas Wesleyan was always referred to as a co-chairman, or usually referred to as a co-chairman of the PRC. But Thomas Wesleyan was not the co-chairman. Doe was the chairman of the PRC. Thomas Wesleyan was the vice chairman of the PRC because Thomas Wesson did not share the chairmanship responsibilities with those. So we're seeing the same thing. So again, the due diligence to do these right is not there. And I'm very particular about these things, as you are, and you're picking these things up already. So I guess, we're going to have to forgive them and just look at, the intention, right? So the intention. What I see here, look, Dennis, there's a history of, successors, former vice presidents always coming back to be the antithesis of those who they served before or their benefactors. Look at Tubman and Barkley. Once Tubman got in office, Barkley now was, kicked to the curb, as they say in America. And then Barkley tried to come back because Barkley was not satisfied with, with the whole open door policy because, Barkley contended that the door was wide open. So one of the reasons he tried to come back. So he tried to come back to reclaim his old job, and it was fractious. It was contentious. It was one of the bitter elections in Liberian history. So if you read that part of the history, let's go to William Tolbert. Tolbert waited, his time for 19 years, and then when he got into office, you could see, the contrast, the vast contrast. Political prisoners under Tubman were released. Now it was a new day, and the press was free. Students, student politics was back and forth swing. So all these different things, he tried to liberalize a lot of different things that Tubman did not do for 27 years. I see a trend here, Dennis. I'm already identifying a trend with Boakai. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but what I'm saying, I'm just looking at the historicity of what is going on. Let's not overlook that because I think Boakai now is going to be the anti-Ellen Johnson. I think this thing is going to go back to 2006, where he's even looking at the assets of people from that administration in which he served. And I think that the former president will be concerned. I may be saying this first now, but I see a trend. Look, Angola, there's something similar that went on in Angola. The vice president, who took over from the president, from his benefactor, went after the president, went after the president's daughter, who was a billionaire. Right now, the president's daughter is in hot water. All of the assets, most of the assets from the former president's daughter have been frozen. And so what you see is the evolution of something that Boakai is putting his imprint on. And I think that is going to go all the way back to 2006 to the chagrin of Mrs. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. There's a reason why we can now say that she did not support him, during the election. What was that, 2017, 2016, 2017? There's a reason for that. So all of this, we have to put them into this context as we discuss the entire realm of this asset, this asset, project, this asset recovery project.
Honorable Grace, you think how long this is going to go? Because asset recovery for a country like Liberia, I don't know if I missed any time frame there, or are we going back to 1847, or how far back can this go? I don't know if I read a time frame in that.
And there's the problem, and the concerns that a lot of pundits have, because if you look at the political discourse right now and what is prevalent, our center stage, are all things that people are kind of like wondering. Why are we maybe trading these trends? Why can we do things more realistic? I mean, I always come from the backdrop where I hear all of these things. They sound good, yeah. And nobody asked the question: how do we go about this? How is this structure? What are we looking for?
It's in the executive order.
Huh?
The question you're asking there in the executive order is laid out there.
It's reading in paper, in black and white, to people really understand what it means. how the Liberian people, how the public has been aware to understand some of these things that the public will not think because of the different the problems in our country with the division. That is not political wish hunt and all of those things. If you look at a GSA, like somebody mentioned, the vehicles, every vehicle that's bought by the government is coded and is marked by GSA. GSA have a full account of all of those properties, down to your desk in your office, the chair you sit on, the computer or whatever you use. If it's bought by its government assets, GSA got a full account, you got a full record on those things. How they going? And the person who was at GSA is not somebody you can easily convince or connive with to be corrupt. We're talking about Mary Bro. Very straightforward woman. I work with her and I know her credibility on these things. Have the government taking time to go to GSA to understand some of these things when it comes to the physical assets? To know that, okay, these are the things for government, these are what we have. These people has contact with these things or what have you. I've had, as far as I have learned, that has not been done, that's not been established. Now, the president has the right to do executive order and establish committees and what have you. When you're establishing committees, you should have a purpose. I mean, I'm not taking that authority from him, but there should be something convincing to the people that, look, we are up. That's something that's going to come up, and the next thing is dies down. Then it can bring distrust in the government, and people start to look around and what the government is really saying to us. What do they mean? What they say? Like when you spoke about audits, I never said there should not be audits. What I'm saying, the first thing with government coming in is people are not even taking offices yet. Ministers are still being confirmed. Audit is not something that is done overnight. It's not something that hurry thing. It's something that is detailed. The work questionnaires and investigations and what have you, when you follow paper trails and all that. Now, if a minister is not even confirmed, how you conduct an audit on that ministry? That's it. So give them a chance to get in, settle in, get advice. They don't have to go with advice, but listen to the people who were there before. Now I look at lecture with Rennie and Pia at the Ministry of Cultural Affairs and Information. Beautiful ceremony. The two people sat, they talk, they hang head. Pia doesn't have to agree to everything the outgoing minister tells him. But you would then listen to balance his own discernment and know exactly how to make his personal decisions. So that's how government works. Government is, you come in, you do your part, you leave. When you leave, you give you listen to whoever was there. Get it. Now, if you go through the paperwork and you find faults, then the faults are reported. Then you understand you're there, you yourself. It's not gossip. It's not somebody telling you he did this, he did that. Oh, he got money last time. Oh, he bought a pair of shoes. No, those things are accounted for. Then when the questionnaires come to you as the head of the institution, you can answer those questions because you're going through the. That take about three months, like 6 months. You've understood some of the things. So this is the you want to recover assets. It's good, but where's GSA? Where's MaryPro? Where all the accounting that GSA has on all government property assets and whatever? What the documentation? We just jump in a gun, and then we get disappointed because when things go nowhere, then we the same people come and say that we said the government failed us. The administration came, they made all the big promises, they didn't live up to it. This is not very costly and time consuming and technical as well, because those people you're going after, they have rights and they have lawyers, they have backing, all those things.
Thank you, Mr. Dukley. There was an asset recovery team under President Weah, headed by Arthur Johnson and Serena's Sifas. That didn't go anywhere. And I believe President Bouaka maybe read their notes and see why it didn't work, so that we'll be able to do. Do you think President Bouaka has learned from that so that we can do this better?
I think it's only logical to think that he has, because this is a monumental task, this asset recovery initiative. Because and to Mr. Greer's point, where you talk about GSA, I think if this committee that has been set up is properly set up with the right kind of resources allocated to it, I think consulting GSA will be part of what they would do. It's only logical to do that in order for you to account for government stolen assets. And also the individuals who are going to be audited, who are going to be asked to, they are known entities. They are not people who are not unknown. And just because they did not declare their asset before, does not preclude the fact that They did not. There were not things that were done inappropriately. So because they are known entities, people know them. People, to certain extent, people knew what assets they had going into government. With what they have now coming out of government, I think that wouldn't be difficult to account for, with Liberia being what it is. It's a small place, and again, it just require the right technical know-how put in place to be able to do this properly. And if this is going to take them to the first unity party government, so be it. I mean, it will only be appropriate to do that, because I know some of if you look at it from our political setup, one of the reasons why this did not take any steam from the CDC government, because some of the very people who were supposed to be looking into this were all benefactors. So you wouldn't expect people to take themselves to court. So I mean, with the individual being talked about who are going to be on this committee, I think if the right resources is put together and the right mechanisms are there, I think this can be done in a way that that will yield something beneficial for the country. And one of the things that I see as a major contributing factor to our successful government is the waste that we have in our government. I mean, as if when your term comes to an end, nobody is willing to. It's like the computers is mine, the blinds. I mean, it's just so childish that people are. I mean, so you know what? The fact that the president has talked about it and he has set up, he have mentioned these individuals to be part of it. I mean, we are talking about a government that is complaining about not having money. Let's see. I mean, I will wait and see how well this whole group is going to be put together, and then to be able to make a judgment on them. But I think I will have no qualms if this committee has to go to the first unity party government and audit even Ellen Johnson's relief. I mean, so what? If there's a need, if there's a justification for it, I would say go for it.
Can I make a quick point?
30 seconds.
Yeah, 30 seconds. On the issue of the the General Services Commission, as to whether they've checked with them, and Mary Bro is there, she has all of the information. We've seen that even though the GSA has all of the records that are in place, even when the 2017-2018 transition took place, with all of the coding that was in place, Mary Bro was standing to Vamuma, stopping government vehicles and asking people to get down because people did not return those assets. And even quite recently, on a radio platform, she said that she asked people to return these assets and people refused to do it. And she's not able to run after people. So I think this committee has been established because of some of these weaknesses and some of these challenges that these institutions have highlighted. And the GSA itself is part of the committee. So I don't think it's going to be done in isolation of the GSA. The GSA is already part of the committee. And Mary Bro have already stated that she had limitations. People were not respecting her orders, and therefore the president needed to take action.
Thank you. And talking about the team, today the team was constituted, as I said, Councillor Edwin Clark Martin, chairman, Ms. Maima Robertson, vice chair, and even though the executive order said co-chair, Mr. Ellis Coffey, member, and his expertise is special advisor. Mr. Martin Colley, member, his expertise is good governance activist. Mr. Ahmed Dempster, member. Honorable Emmanuel Gongwe, member, his expertise is advocate. Dr. Rennie B. Jackson, member, expertise, public policy expert. Ms. Angel Andrew, member, youth representative. Ms. Victoria Moisima, member, business community. Mr. Josh Moore, member from security. John Mombach Glee, member, security. Mr. Takum Martin Allen, member, private sector. Then we have representative from GSA, LNP, Ministry of Justice. And then we'll
Dennis, can I have 30 seconds?
On the members?
Yes.
Yeah, so
on this issue.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so real quick. You mentioned something very profound from the top of this discussion. You mentioned that there's the LACC already in existence. So you create another bureaucracy with this, right? And first of all, congratulations to Alex Coffey, our colleague. I'm very happy for him. But you create this bureaucracy now, that's going to now, overlap perhaps. Thomas will advise us on this if I'm wrong. Perhaps the LACC. So why don't you utilize the LACC, to do this task, or you're just going to leave them in the office and there's dust is growing on their desk. Their chairs will be getting dusty, because people don't report the work. I mean, like, what are you? Sometimes I scratch my head. What are you doing with all this big bureaucracy? This is large investment already. Utilize those who are already there. And by you calling it asset recovery, to me, you already assume that, there is something to be recovered.
Right.
Anti-corruption should be a year-round process. It doesn't stop. That wheel has to continue to turn, to spin. It doesn't stop.
Right. And that was my concern. I'm bringing the lawyers on Sunday so that we can sort this out. On the legal side as well, and then some financial people. But let me go to the team, or Honorable Greaves, I'll start with you. I don't know if you're familiar with people that own that team. We know the former LACC boss there, Claude Martin, and then I don't know who the vice chair is, but I know Ellis Coffey, I know Martin Colley, and other people there. I want your assessment on this team. Does it still appear like Mr. Boaka is giving job to people that are? Do you see there as a job that is given to people that maybe help the campaign one way or the other? I was also looking for people like John Molu on this team, but I didn't see that. What's your take on the members of this team?
That's a good one. Good take you just put. I'm familiar with one or two of the individuals on the team, not many of them, but yeah. And to go with Mr. Sherry, what you just said, that was a salient point. We already have government institutions that are established for these things. Now, what I see and what you're seeing, Dennis, is it a duplication of function? Are we going to usurp the functions of the government already existing tax-paying institutions or agencies to congregate a group of people forming a taxable team that they haven't done sufficient investigation? Because from what I've heard from my sources, this team was just constituted because of what the news was around, that people were saying people left offices with things and whatever. So it was all rumor. And it got to the president's office, and the president was, you know what? I'm going to use the executive order and constitute a taxable team. We're going to go after these people. Now, we quoted Mary Bro, who said, okay, she went after some, she couldn't get some. The same Mary Bro was on the air who said, when an individual who took things from his office and was taken home, and the media said he was absconding with government properties rather. And Mary was the one who claimed and said there are some people in government who had their own belonging to personal things. And we GSA, when you see them taking, we okay that particular individual that we're talking about. Why you don't come to my office and consult with me and find out how this thing is being run and how we go about reclaiming government assets? That's what I heard. That's what I made my point from, because if she could speak that way, it means that nobody had consulted her. Nobody had went to her, not gone to her to ask her, hey, how do we retrieve government properties? What are the mechanisms we use? What do you have on file? What are the documentation? Oh, it's a wonder that there is that individual who took his things, who took, I think, some personal belonging that he came and took away his own office with his own personal money. And when government was not able, I would think about the name. And Mary was the one who defended this individual. So a lot of things is convoluted. A lot of things are in it. It's very tricky. That's why the president should focus on those bread and butter issues. I would think, take your time, establish yourself. Is it 1 month? Take your time, sit in office, understand and run it. Use the executive order on press regulation, all the different regulations. Try to bring the hardship out of people down. Use the pen. Then when the people are happy.
You made that point earlier. Let's go to the team now. You made that point earlier.
I get pointers in it because what we're seeing, look, right, Dennis. Look, we all have good intentions, right? We all have good intentions. But Sometimes what those intentions lead us, yield no results. It doesn't make positive impact. And then we sit and regret. So these are why most time I'm very critical, and I'm always on the side of things, asking the technical questions. Why is this? What do we expect? Convince us what is in this, not just write nice and publish it and what have you. If we don't understand what is happening, the finances, where the money coming from? The government is broke, government doesn't have money. We know we're still waiting on the budget at the past. At least that would make our people laugh a little bit. And we praying hard for the US budget to pass, but we know the foreign aid and things like that the government depending on back home will help boost them. All those things haven't gone through yet. Why are we creating too many tensions? All these things have been prevalent within our political discourse. Should be quiet. People should start interacting with each other and getting things done. We need the help for all your predecessors. What you doing going after President Salih? For what? What you get from her? What you get from the administration? What I help? What's that? Is that the urgency right now for the people right now? So it doesn't make it going after President. We are going after President Salih. Is that the kind of country we want to have?
Thank you, Thomas. Let me go to you on the configuration.
Please come to me, because this narrative that we need to deal with the bread and butter issues, we've done this for 20 years. We've not still been able to address the bread and butter issues.
Yeah.
We saw $11 million put in a budget to subsidize the importation of rice. Until today, we don't know how the $11 million, there are still controversies around the $11 million.
Right. He didn't know. But Thomas, let's leave that. And the point I was making to Honorable, you made that point, we talk about it. I want us to move on the team that has been formulated, right? And one thing I saw on that executive order is say, the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning shall with immediate effect allocate and disburse funding based on the budget presented for the full implementation of this exercise. I don't know if this budget, when it is going to go through the Senate or where's, but let's look at those that are there. Is it the same thank you cabinet thing, or do we see the expertise? What is your level of trust in that group implementing this asset recovery?
So just before the list came out today, I mean, there have been questions since the president issued the executive order, because if you go to the executive order, you will see that the members were not there. So people have been asking questions. Who do you think is going to be there? Even today, several calls that we were making. And like you were saying, some people had the expectation, for instance, that John Molue was going to be on the committee, right? But my thought about this committee had always been that you needed lawyers, people who understand the law, because this is a complex process of law. Asset recovery, trying to recover proceeds of crime. This is a legal issue. Do we have the necessary laws in place to be able to even confiscate proceeds of crime? So I always expected there was going to be a lawyer. My expectation was that there be a lawyer on the team, and we have that. There was also the expectation that we needed someone who understood our public financial management system, because somebody must break the PFM law before that person is held for a violation in the PFM space. And we have Mr. Coffey, for instance, who had this PFM background, an auditor. He has a history of being an auditor. He worked at the FIU.
Auditor, I don't think so. Was he?
No. I mean, he said it today. He was an auditor, I think, for a couple of years before he moved on to working at FIU and other places. So I see a lawyer on the team. Also, like I said initially, someone who's not only a lawyer, but who headed the Anti-Corruption Commission and did a couple of investigations. That is a starting point. I also see advocates who have been advocating for things like academic crimes in the country. Martin, he come with that advocacy around.
Where Martin's experience coming from on that place?
What I'm saying is that I'm not saying his experience is in asset recovery. I'm saying he's been pushing for good governance. The issue of asset recovery, the issue of violation of PFM laws is a governance issue. So this is why they place him on the committee, that you'll be advocating for good governance. Every time there has been violation of our laws.
So I would think you would take someone from governance commission who have experience doing things for good governance, not somebody who's just right, or just say stuff. So I was a little disappointed, by those names, like, the Martin Colley, the Gongo, Gonkwe, and then the youth the business people. It's like you forming something like, you just want to have representation. I don't know what you make of that. I don't see the need.
So I just started. I was going. Like I said to you, I expected that there was going to be a lawyer. It's chaired by a lawyer. I expected that there was going to be someone who has a knowledge on our public financial management system. The special advisor has knowledge in that. You could say that some of the members that are there, you have problems with them. That's fair enough. You could see as people who have been included, for instance, to have an appreciation of the role to they play in the election. You can say that. I cannot question you on your opinion. You have Dr. Rene Jackson, who himself was a local government official. He has a PhD in, I think, public policy. So there are members who come with some experience. There could be members that you could disagree with. But again, they are going to work with already established institutions, the LACC, the FIU, and all of that, who will learn credibility. Even the governance commission that you are talking about, they will sit on the lap of these institutions to be able to work with them to pull this. It's not that the team is going to do everything by themselves. They have the Ministry of Justice as a member who's going to help them on the legal side. So I think the team is just this team that is going to focus exactly on this, and then they will use established institutions, the GAC and everyone else, to be able to pull the trigger on this. But like you are saying, no one will agree with all of the members. There are some members that people think they don't have the experience, they don't have the practice and all of that. But I think it's just a composition that was drawn on advocacy, legal background, PFM background, all of that.
Mr. Sharif, is this part of the, Dr. Douglas always talk about the thank you cabinet? Is this also a thank you committee, a thank you task force?
I think it is. You have to look at this as a white elephant. One of those white elephants, such as the appointment of 2 ministers of state without portfolio. Minister of state without portfolio, like, what are you doing? Okay. Asset recovery team. This is supposed to be in the LACC's wheelhouse. This is not something that you're going to create a separate committee for. There's going to be a lot of overlaps now. People complaining about, being overtaken by this group and that group. And the group, to me, is a little large. So yes, if you will, this is another thank you, job being created. While we're talking about no funding, while we're talking about, issues of finances and whatnot, you're creating this bloated bureaucracy. That in itself has to be questioned. Your sincerity about recovering assets is to wipe out corruption, to ensure that your resources are expended wisely. But in the process, if you are amalgamating all these bloated bureaucracy and bringing all these people together, then your commitment to good governance also has to be questioned. And I always go back to himself and his immediate surrounding. They have to first declare their asset. They have to first show leadership, for the rest of us, for the rest of the country to follow, because the president is the role model of the country. And then lastly, I think that what he's driving at right now is that he's going to try to go back, to go back and look at 06 in the government in which he worked in his own administration. I think he's going to go back there to try to pull his former boss into this. I may be saying this, other people may not be looking at this, but I smell something different.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are with us and want to take part in the conversation, please call the number on your screen there, scrolling on your screen. And I lost 2 persons already who were on the call because they couldn't wait anymore. But so make your call, and then we're going to take a short 40 seconds break. When we come back, we're going to open the phone lines for people to call. Quickly, 39 seconds.
Our country, sweet Mandela, our country, that God gave all this country.
Thank you. Mr. Dukla, you have to change your phone to landscape view so we can have you. Well,
if you got nobody on the line, please, just what he said. In my experience, in every government I've seen, Dennis, when there's an emergency situation like health or these kind of assets recovery and all of that, you already have existing institutions that are responsible for those things. So in order not to waste taxpayer money, especially the government as it is now broke, you appoint a czar. So the team is formulated. You have GSA, if you want to put a GSE, LACC, and those groups, and maybe even the national police. Now you already have people working in these institutions that are already being paid by the government and taxpayers' money. Then you can find a neutral head who's going to work with those teams from a neutral standpoint, so that there be the agenda is stimulated and yes, within the time frame. So you get a czar and appoint owner. But this one, what I'm seeing is complete duplication of function, and the mandate is not clearly defined, because how does it correlate with those institutions already existing? What the finance come from? Who paying for all of these things when the government already looking for money? And when it comes to economic issues is not just one off. We spent 11 billion, and I said no. Economic is ongoing. It's like you eat every day. You gotta eat. You gotta feed your children every day. So when we talk about economic stability of a country, it's continuous progress in it, continuous support, and you get stability. Then you start having growth. So it's not a one-off thing. It takes time. It doesn't take 1 year. It sometimes takes 20, 40 years is going on. But you want to maintain the economic stability as you work towards growth and the economic soar. The economy soar.
Thank you. Mr. Douglas, you still can get your thing right. At this time, we don't have a color yet, so we go through our Tabata of the week. Every week, there is some Tabata going on. Tabata is the crew speaking for nonsense, foolishness, complete Tabata. Mr. Sharif.
Yeah.
What's your Tabata of the week?
Yeah, so here's my caveat with that. I hope that people don't see this the wrong way, but here's my thing. When the confirmation hearing for A.B. Kromah was being held, he was sworn in on the Bible, but A.B. Kromah is a Muslim. So I don't understand that. You know, we Liberians look.
You don't think he requested for it?
I don't know about that. I don't know if you will, or he just went alone to comply to say.
Maybe he called for the Bible, so we don't know.
It's interesting, but every time, Dennis, that we have these public functions, we're opening a whole revival. You know, Liberia, we are so religious that even if you stop to give someone a ride, they will have to have a revival before they jump in the car with you and then the next day, you're stabbing that person in the back. I mean, this is the biggest about that, Dennis. I mean, we are so religious on the outside. Everything is a revival.
Right.
Oh, let's go and eat something. Let me get you a bowl of rice. Oh, that person's gonna open a whole revival. And then and then the next day they're ready to stab you in the back. So it's just...
I had a friend who was he's a Muslim, and I think it was 89. He was having this big 7-day Adventist crusade at SKD, and because of a girl, he went there. He said, but when the camera is coming, he will bend. So you never know.
Come on, man.
Yeah, maybe A.B. Kromah called for the Bible because he wanted to please somebody who wanted him in church the next day.
The thing about Dennis is he knows a lot of stories.
Maybe no Quran in the message, man. I got to do it quick.
And I think during the Tubman era, there was another guy who went, and said, he didn't want to wear a gown, because he wanted to wear a suit, because people want to conform somehow.
Right.
Honor Greens, what's your Tabata of the week? Mr. Dukla, you have to fix your camera so we can bring you on. You're still.
Just before I go in there, I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to be on the poor quality of my voice tonight. I'm struggling with that. I'm still trying to make it.
there are 2 minute callers here. Let me bring them on quickly. Yeah, we have 2 minutes callers here. Let's start with Mr. J. Victor Nabe. Mr. Nabe.
Hey, good evening, guys. Great show. Thank you very much. Look, many of us have been very critical of the president for the slow start, in which they were rolling out the government. But I'll be honest to say that I am encouraged by what I'm seeing. The establishment, or at least the moves being made by the president to go after the war crimes court. I know it's going to be a difficult lift, but I think eventually it's going to happen. And also the Asset Recovery Commission. I think those are all very good moves. And I have to say that kudos to him. Many of us are very encouraged. Now, quickly, let me mention to my friends who are arguing that by not going after the economy and setting up the war court, economic crime court, have our priorities. Well, let me just inform you, unfortunately, our economy, our government depends on donors, gifts from outsiders. And our outsiders are complaining that Liberia is like a sifter. You put the money in and it falls out. So there is uncontrollable graft in the country. This is the only country where I know someone comes into government who cannot even pay rent, and within 6 months they own a mansion and they get away with it scot-free. We have to put a stop to this, and I think this is a very good move on the part of the government. I believe this will spur the economy because I think it will encourage people who are out there who have goodwill towards us. Once they see us making moves to patch our problem, I think the economy is going to bust us. So thank you very much again. Great show.
Thank you.
Keep it up, guys.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Aliyu Samba Kamara. Aliyu.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I think Victor just made my day. I was just wondering, must we criticize? Must we condemn just because we can? I mean, some of the the illogical argument about the economy. What is the economy? It's assets recovery, not part of the economy. But Thomas, I like Thomas because he thinks very well before he speaks. Then the asset recovery team is a research team. So Martin Colley, even with his inexperience, can do a better job. We saw him bring great people down in Liberia, including the president of LBDI. He did all of that through research. So he has the research capability. Now, when people say, "Oh, you have the NSCC," that's overlapping. Again, before we really criticize or condemn, we should know the issue. Just because we sound like we know it, let's get the detail of the issue before we actually speak. Because most of the time we're speaking and we don't really know what we are saying. The NSCC is an investigation arm. They investigate why the other people will be there to beef up their effort. Everything that they will go after will come from the LSCC.
Thank you.
The GCC. So how can you then say, "Oh, somebody's going to overlap"? If LSCC doesn't give you information, you can't do it. Cloud Mountain and others are not going to audit people. They are going to go after the fact, the documents that are given to them are those documents that they're going to look at and do the research. Consider them a research team.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Mr. Eugene Hammer, you're live.
Thank you for being on the show now. I've been listening to you guys. But I think President Boga is not ready to lead yet. He's not ready to lead. If you are to rescue the people, you have to go for the bread and butter thing first before you go for the other things that are not ready priority for the Liberian people yet. You need to rescue the people before you go after other stuff. You're not ready. It's just a wish hunt to he's doing after the other people. He need to
which other people are you talking about?
Those former government officials who you think that they have government policy or government finances.
But if they don't have it, then they are free. So why are you afraid?
No, I'm not afraid. Those are not provided for now.
Who says who? If I need to drive a car and the car is not there, how do I get around? You say it's not a priority. If someone takes 6 million from the economy, if I don't get it back, how do I put it back in the economy? So how is that not a priority? We always talk about people.
Now it's not a priority.
When?
They just just give it $41 million.
Who give it to them?
The bank, central bank, they asked for $41 million and was given to them to pay salaries and other stuff. What?
Okay, thank you.
I'm not done yet.
All right, go ahead. Make your point.
Yeah, you see, that's what I'm saying. They need to pay the people 2 months of salary, give them the money to be able to feed their families first before you go after assets guys on the other side.
All right.
You need to rescue you must rescue.
Well, people stole from, we shouldn't get the money back. That's part of the rescue.
Allegedly.
I agree. We're going to get out. You know what I will?
Okay.
The pepper tree is there.
Thank you.
The pepper tree is there. You go get it.
All right. Thank you. Let me bring on our next caller, 6763 area code. Langley.
Yeah, Kelly.
Okay,
right.
Go ahead, Langley.
Okay, I support, I'm a librarian professional, okay, and I support the War and Economic Crime Code. Firstly, I'm looking at the need for economic crime code because people come to public office and acquire riches in a short time, which is wrong, all right? We live in our society, our hospitals, our educational sector, primary, as far as higher education is very poor. Not competitive at all. Health sector, preventing people dying from preventable sicknesses. People need to enter public and private offices in Liberia, institutions with accountability. So there's a need for Liberia to go forward for economic and war crime codes in that country. If it doesn't happen, we can make any technical progress.
Thank you.
It's just my contribution.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Let me bring Teddy Lion Yankon, the citizen from Fargo, North Dakota. Well, Judge, we have failed to give us economic crime code, no asset recovery. Thank God for President Bouaka. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Oh, wow. That's not true, brother.
All right, go ahead, make your point. I was only pulling your leg. Go ahead.
President, we are new. What was happening, President, we are putting before the legislatures, but the increase, the technical aspect of this whole thing, very complex indeed. So this is why we listen to some wise men as a panelist on the platform, like Mr. Duque, the other young guy with the shares, where he very, he's thinking out of the box. Joseph Bouaka, he needs to put the bread and butter issues first, but now he's trying to accept the neo-Nazi gifts. We should understand there are a lot of wars and problems around the world, and we don't want to be at peace. As one of the panelists said, Liberia are being at peace. You understand? So we don't want anybody to force us into problem. We don't want that. Not because Joseph Bouaka don't have any big agenda and he only wants to just grab money from out there, put over the $so million down, when you accept this and go give to your government. That shows that Bouaka don't have a plan to lead. So we need to put the bread and butter issues first before accepting something different out there. People from out there will plunge us into a very serious predicament, and we will not be able to get from out of that soon.
Thank you.
Support the war crimes and support the economic crime. We can go out there and move where I can learn. Joseph Bouaka putting what's the name of these people that he appointed to go after people outside. They need to go back to some years back. Now in the CDC government, if they need to enter under the CDC government, there will be a problem in Liberia. Serious problem. And just go pushing that, they need that.
Thank you. Thank you.
It'll be a serious problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Solomon Sampson, you're live.
Good evening, Mr. Jar, and to the rest of the panelists. The assets recovery and the economic and war crime code establishment are things that have long been waiting for the Liberian people. I understand some people are having issue about bread and butter situation should be handled first. And like you continue to correct the last callers, these are things that are part of the bread and butter things in Liberia. The idea of let's wait first, let somebody got their food before we can establish this code. Now, the only thing I will say is maybe the establishment of the economic and work crime code should have been in the 100 days deliverable and the asset recovery. Well, if they're not there, it's still not a bad idea for bringing the folks now. We all know it's not going to happen overnight, but at least he has already initiated that, and that have been passed through the House. One of my concerns is, especially when it comes to the economic crimes court, we have how many senators now? 30 senators, or maybe 29, and maybe 7, 8, or 9 of those guys are on a section for economic crimes. Now, if that bill goes to the Senate, with all the crying that President Johnson is doing, he's not only doing it by himself, he's going to solicit all votes to keep that bill not to go forward. If that happens, what will Burkhardt do then? Will Burkhardt issue another
executive order?
Executive order?
Yeah.
Will that executive order?
And you renew it every year.
Review it every year.
Yeah.
Now, if he do executive order, does the Senate have a power to override that executive order? So these are things that I'm more concerned about besides these people talking about let's focus on bread and butter issue.
Thank you.
And then one of the important things is that's a good step, Mr. Burkhardt. But like a few of the guys on the show is the leadership. Let's lead by example now. So since you have declared your asset, let's make it public. That way you are telling whoever that will come after you next that, hey, here are my hands. If I go after other people, I'm on the books. When I leave, come after me too. So make that clear. You know, don't get jumped from one end to another. Declare your assets so we know what you got, so that when you are leaving, we will know what to come after too. But it is a good idea to go through with this. I'm really concerned about how it's going to play out in the Senate. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Let me take the last caller here, and that's Joe Moyo. Mr. Joe Moyo, the UK trained professional.
Thank you for accepting my call, Dennis. It's a good show. Enjoying it. But, I'm old school. I always believe, when a new president comes in, like they do in the West, you give them 100 days, the 100-day report card. After 100 days, then you can start doing your evaluation, your criticism. But Burkhardt, the first 2 weeks he got into power, the criticism just started to flow, and that's a very bad habit of Liberians.
It's just the anxiety. The heat is too much.
How can we help you build a country? And we should be down there helping, advising and doing all of that. Instead of, just right out the door criticizing him. Another thing Burkhardt has done, with the war crimes court, I don't know, I think he's listening too much to the international community. Because with the war crimes court, I think it's a little too early. That shouldn't be like at the top of his agenda. We've got too many pressing problems in our country to deal with. So the war crimes court, I think it's pushing it a little too far. No matter what, the international community have been pressurizing him to do that. No matter what they will say, he can do that, say maybe by next year or so, the second year of his administration. But just out the door, you talk about war crimes court. That I think I got a problem with that.
Thank you, Joe.
The second thing is the economic crime court, I believe, that they want to set up. I'm trying to figure out the methodology that will, be part and parcel of setting up that court. You see, our problem, Dennis, is that we got a lot of things written, but we don't have the institutions to carry out a lot of the things that we have, you know, the rules and regulations and guidelines. So that's something that Mr. Barker needs to jump on is building the institutions in Liberia. So right now, all our institutions are kind of like broken. You know, we don't have any solid institutions. I mean, from the judiciary, the legislative, the executive. Well, we all agree to that. Even the so-called integrity institutions. So once he goes about rebuilding those institutions that were broken during the regime of WIA, but we are pretty much undermine them in terms of tenureship and all that. Yeah, then you can say, okay, we're ready now. These are the people that we want to bring, you know, we want to set up this war crimes court, we want to set up the economic commission, because with the economic crimes commission, once again, what sort of methodology they will use?
Thank you.
You know, so yeah. Anyway, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Joe. Well,
okay.
We have that's all the callers we have for this time. We continue our Tabata session, and Mr. Honorable Griswold on the floor.
Yeah, my Tabata was I'm so upset with the poor quality of voice. My Tabata was this week. I came across a film on YouTube, and the new press secretary at the executive mansion had a whole team of press and journalists touring the executive mansion and going to every aspect of the mansion as far as the 8th floor, having that building publicly, the imagery, everything to the public, something I've never seen before in all my time. And I grew up in that mansion, know the in and out of it. That mansion was so restricted, the architectural component of it was kept as a secret. Not that it had anything connotation or whatever you wouldn't know, but so that the public didn't have access to the architectural design and all of those things. And I don't know who advised the press secretary to the president, and she had the whole floor she started from the 5th to the 6th as far as the 8th floor, and that was so astonishing to me. And I mean, it's not much fun. It's funny that people would do something like that, not knowing, you know, their own job prescription or whatever. But then it's serious in a way that those are sacred and very secret properties that even if you work, people working at this for decades, they didn't even go up on the 5th floor. They didn't manage to go on the 4th floor. They didn't even see a certain part of the building. And you had to be restricted. When we were there, you had to have certain clearance to go certain floors and whatever. And to just have it exposed to the public, you don't know who's watching, you don't know who's looking at it. They're not looking at furniture, but looking at the architectural design. They're looking at other things that you might not know they are taking in. I think that was my Tabata. I saw that. I was like, oh my goodness.
Maybe it's government to the people.
That's a bad delivery.
I mean, let me go to Mr. Douglas for your Tabata of the week.
National security.
Mr. Douglas, you've been struggling with the connection. What's your Tabata of the week?
Yeah. You know, I saw a YouTube clip on the internet where this guy was saying, we'll wait for them to see what they would do in the first 6 months, and then we'll know what to do. And I just thought that statement was one of a reflection of, you know, all the Liberians, despite all the election slogans. And you know, the guy, the way he looked on the video was just it caught my attention. This was like a regular guy in the street. He said, lead them. We'll give them 6 months and then we'll see what to do. The notion that what to do, I think it's just an expression of the frustration they're living. And, you know, succeeding government have come and gone with nothing happening. Maybe, just maybe, in 6 months we know if this one will do something better than what we've been expecting. I just thought it just caught my attention.
Thank you.
Know, that would be my tabata of the day, of the week.
Thomas, what's your tabata of the week?
I pass.
Mr. Sharif.
I think I said mine already.
All right. So my tabata of the week is, of course, the takeover at NASCOR. I believe the lady in charge there handled them well, and for me to see them walking out in shame, to me, going there with a letter from the president as if our senators and ministers and party chairmen have told to courier boys and girls, to me, that's complete tabata. Well,
Dennis.
That's all the time we have. Is there another tabata?
No, if you will, I mean, what you just said there, something you said there also is what's wrong with the Liberian society now. Look, why do you have the National Social Security and Welfare Corporation Director a tenure position? Like, for what? I mean, these are things that need to be debated. I mean, people are going to be sitting around on tenures in areas that are really not significant. I mean, you're talking about tenure professor and stuff like that. I mean, these guys, what are you going to do? National Social Security and Welfare Corporation, people are not taking any pension in that country.
You have the Liberal National Lottery too, is tenure.
Yeah.
So Dennis, you see, you just made a point. So that if one or two of our colors, respectfully, I respect all our colors who called and said we're criticizing the government, what have you. It's not that we want to criticize the government. We want the best for the government. But the government came in with their own urgency. They came in without rush. They're bringing all these things onto themselves. And we're just looking at it and asking the technical and the right questions. Because if you look at like what you just said in your topic, that somebody's going to being with a presidential letter and not knowing it's a tenure post. All that, you're having a commission set up when you have LACC with trained investigators. Their job is to investigate. They've been there for years, seasoned, experience, and taxpayers paying them already. And then you have GSC, you have GSC, you have GSA, you have all the people who are working on it, and it's already getting several pay from the tax. And then you get a big industry or a whole bureaucracy with people just appointed, duplicating the function of those institutions. And when you duplicate functions, you don't get results.
Are different, but we're going to sort that out this Sunday. We're going to bring him some aspect to kind of. But I want us to close now.
Let me ask you one question, Dennis, and the panelists, everybody on this panel, just one simple question. Does anyone on this panel know of any country in the sub-region where people go at least 90 days working and they don't get paid?
No, I don't.
It's for everybody.
But people go 90 days working paid?
No, I don't.
What's your point, Douglas?
People work for 3 months and they don't get paid.
Nigeria. The Federal Republic of Nigeria.
No, I'm saying besides Liberia in the sub-region, is there another country in the sub-region where...
Let us close. I want to get
Nigeria.
I want to get the closing comment. We want to, I don't want to make the comparison. The last time I said we're making a program short, just like the We Are presidency and somebody got mad. So I don't want to do it like that tonight. So let me get your closing comment. Let's start with Honorable Greaves. Let's close tonight.
You like all kind of.
You're breaking out.
I'm breaking up. We come every Thursday on Tough Talking Thursday to give our thought-provoking ideas and critical analysis on the functionaries of government. And when we see those things that are questionable, it's our duty to ask the necessary question. Because I'm of the notion that the administration is listening, the government, people listening to these things. When you hear about war crimes court and economic court, I don't know who getting the information from where, but I can tell you, our international partners are wary. They are struggling with their own recovery from the pandemic. They're dealing with tariffs. They're dealing with the Red Sea and the conflicts that have been caused in Eastern Europe and what have you. They don't no longer have that foreign direct aid that you spend money on. here, there, and yonder for this agenda. The United Nations already told you they do not have the funding because they depend on contributions from member states. And member states want to know where we're putting our money and why are we initiating these things. We've done these things before. Why are we going back? Liberia has a government. Liberia have a structure. We have our own system. We have 3 branches of government. We have a judiciary system. If we have problems, somebody steal money or whatever we put it, we have the anti-graft system. We have the legal system. The international community are not willing to just come and spend money. They don't have the money for themselves right now. So these are some of the things that we need to understand. Where are we going? What's the agenda? Who's driving this? Who are we talking to? Are we talking to people with big names coming around who call the white or the pigment, the skin look bit? I think when you say, oh, the US government is not involved with that. The EU is not involved with that. United Nations is not involved with that. And I'm saying it. And we will come back here again on the same shore. And most of the things that we see happening and taking place that have no reason to be in a rush right now. And we'll be discussing it. We'll say, oh, Mr. Gary said it. We've gone nowhere. We're right here.
Thank you.
So we want the best for our government. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Mr. Dukley, you're closing.
Well, I think we've spoken a lot about the missteps of this new government. For the first time, they've come up with some, at least on the face of it, some positive steps that, if properly implemented, will make a difference. So I hope they are listening to us and others who are talking about these issues. So I hope that the fate of this asset recovery committee that has been set up will not be like the previous one. And I think finally the president has muzzled some, some strength to be able to come up with some of these things that some of us have been calling for, despite people complaining about funding. Look, if this thing is going to take steam, trust me, they're going to find a way to fund it, especially when a lot of us feel that was a major missing piece since the cessation of hostility in our country. If the right mechanism is put in place and the will is there to see it through, we can find a way to get funding for it. So I think it's the right thing. And for the first time, I would say I would like to commend the new president, Joseph Boakai, for just initiating this process. Now, whether we see it through or not, that's another thing. But at least we are talking about it. The first step has been taken in the House of Representatives. Hopefully, the Senate will concur. And I think we must commend him.
Thank you. Mr. Kane.
Very good show. I just want to make some bullet points in my conclusion. The only way you are going to solve bread and butter issues in Liberia is to deal with the issue of corruption. There's no way you can improve lives and livelihood in that country if you don't address the issue of corruption. Also, it's not entirely true that the president has forgotten on the bread and butter issue and only focusing on war and economic crimes code and asset recovery. You just highlighted one of the executive orders where he has suspended tariff on rice. The economic implication of that is to allow the price of rice to remain low. Essentially, what the government is doing there is that the government is paying portion of the price that you pay for rice. Because every time you waive taxes, that is a tax expenditure in our field. So it's like the government is subsidizing the importation of rice. So the government is doing that at the same time are promoting the issue of accountability in our country. Like I said, we need to address the issue of economic crimes. We need to stop this looting of the state, where people loot our resources and then go through the electoral process and get elected. On the issue of our international partners saying they don't have money to fund the war and the economic crimes code, that is not true, except if we have not been following. The ambassador for the US government, I think this is her second visit. Every time she has been in Liberia, she says that if Liberia makes up her mind that we want to do this, They are our partners. They will stand by us. And one of the caller made this point. Our donor partners are getting tired with this small country of 5 million people, where 20 years you have put billions of dollars into this country, and yet there is no improvement. It's still among the top five poorest countries in Africa. Why should that be? There is a problem. So until we address this issue of political accountability, the accountability for war crimes, and address the issue of economic crimes, we are going nowhere. Everyone that is having concern, how it will happen, do we have the infrastructure in place? This is the reason why you have to start the process. When you start it, then you define the methodology and be able to move forward. So I think we commend the president. This is the start of reforming and building a state in Liberia. What we have always had is an artificial state where everybody can just come and loot and go away. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Mr. Sharif.
Thomas is an excellent point. An artificial state, almost like a failed state, you know, and so we create these conditions. But I want to go back to, you know, the War and Economic Court, proposed court. When this is put in place, I like to see this put in the hands largely in the hands of Liberians. You have the former TRC commission, and most of the commissioners, they're still around. So you want to invest in those individuals who have the knowledge, and they've done a lot of work on this. Of course, you know, you can bring in new people, but that core group, you want to go around and get that core group first. The issue of asset recovery, I still maintain that the layer of bureaucracy is getting larger. I'm concerned. I don't care what Aliyu says. You know, Aliyu and others are, you know, these unreasonable supporters. No matter what Boaka does, is fine. That is not a patriotic action. It's always good to look at issues and make a fair assessment. It's a layer of bureaucracy, and it's getting larger. Lastly, this tenure issue bothers me a lot. So you mean to say now that the president is not going to get a free hand to be able to appoint people that he would like to work with? I mean, I don't agree with a lot of this. I mean, you just mentioned the National Lottery. Why do you need tenure for someone to head the National Lottery? Why do you need a tenure position to operate the National Social Security and Welfare Corporation? I mean, why do you need tenure at EPA? The EPA director is a tenure position. This is going to be a problem going forward if the president's hands are tied this way. I mean, I'd rather devolve power to the rural areas where you have your superintendents must be elected, your chiefs. You know, Dennis, when we were growing up, I mean, chieftaincy election was a big deal. Now, I think the president's appointing them now. Superintendents have to be elected. You get that in the rural area. In Monrovia, these cabinet positions, these director positions, I think that the president should be given that authority to work with the people that he or she would like to work with to foster his or her agenda, whoever it is, whether it's Boaka, it's Boaka now, whether it's another female in the future. I don't know, whoever it is, they have to be given the authority to be able to appoint individuals that they can work with. This tenure, to me, is disruptive in many ways. Dennis, I've seen, tenure professors here, the intellectuals and people who can write, when they write, when they speak, there's nothing you can do. They can't get fired. They cannot get fired because of their views that they've expressed, because of their scholarship. That's the thing that they do in America. But somehow in Liberia now, we have all these people who are tenure. I mean, so sooner or later, you're going to have a president who, is not going to be able to do what they're supposed to do because they're tied down by tenure.
Thank you. And I'll make sure that all of my analysts here are focused on Liberia at tenure. So you can speak freely without. Thank you.
But I thought I'm already tenure.
No, but you got to understand what is tenure in the government. which positions are tenure and why they are tenure positions.
Yeah.
Then you can make an argument.
On that note, we want to close tonight. Thank you, gentlemen, for the time. I want to thank our viewers, those who are watching now and those who will watch later. Always watch Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, we close with our song that says, whether you are tenure or not tenure, we are all Liberians, man. We can make it, all right? Let's do our best to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Have a good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberians.